my name is Lena. Welcome to my floor and to some recent reads. They are in no particular order, just the order that I wanted to talk about them. And I'm starting with Red, White and Royal Blue, which I don't have with me currently because immediately after finishing it, a friend asked me to lend it, which is not very common. That's why I have this YouTube channel. If you don't know what Red, White and Royal Blue is about, you are probably new to BookTube, so welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay. This book follows I think he's 21 years old, first son of the US, and he ends up in a bit of a quarrel with a royal prince of England, and to make things right between the countries, they have to pretend to be best friends, and things escalate quickly from there on, which you can probably guess from the cover. Like, pink usually has a certain meaning in books, right? Or in design. So you can guess. I personally thought it was a really addicting read, definitely. Like, I went through it so quickly and it got me out of a reading slump. And I mostly enjoyed the banter. The banter between Alex and his sister, Alex and his best friend, and also who's also the sister's best friend. So they're a bit of a trio that live in White House. That's the name. In the White House. And then also Prince Henry has friends, or a friend and a sister, and wow, there's actually a lot of mirroring, I'm just noticing. Yeah, critical thinking and stuff like that. We don't do it here, which is great for someone who studies literature. Great. Yeah, they always had a lot of banter and it felt, to me, really natural. And I laughed a lot. It was my kind of humor, but I guess I can get that people would think it's pretentious or overdone or something, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that part, really. And there was a discussion with his mom about turkeys. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. And yes, I tagged that in the book, actually, because I enjoyed it way too much. It was stupid, but yeah, it was really silly. I loved it. I love this kind of stuff. What was a bit hard for me was since Alex really wants to get into politics like his parents, there was a lot of politic talk, and since I neither know a lot about American politics, nor do I know the words that are used in that area, on that topic, that was sometimes a bit hard to understand. To me, it felt really authentic and like she was well informed, but since I don't know much about that, I can't really promise anything. If you're really into politics, or if you know a lot about American politics, I can't promise you that you will agree with everything, or that it makes sense, or that it's well researched. It felt like that to me, but yeah, it made it a bit hard to care that I didn't get everything in that area. Yeah, as I said, she seems very educated on that area. Which she did not seem educated on was the royal family and their rules, I think. I mean, it's not our royal family, it's not mine, but it's not the current, actual, real life royal family. She doesn't use any real, at the moment, living people, like, not like the crown. She made up her own universe, basically, or not her own universe. She talks about older people that are dead already, and they are the same, but the royal family is a different one. So maybe that's the reason why the rules they have don't apply. But I felt like, even though I don't know that much about the royal family, I felt like she got a lot of things wrong, or you have to really suspend quite a bit of disbelief. Like the things they are wearing, for example, or where they can go, or who they can be friends with, that all, or what kind of pictures they can take. I feel like that's something I know that the royals always have very strict rules what kind of social media they can use, or basically they can't really use it on their own, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they can't just post private pictures. They have to be either be staged or be approved by someone. As far as I know, once again, I'm not educated on that topic, but I know it's escapism. It's escapism. That does not sound right. Escapism. I know it's escapism. When I say it in a sentence, it still sounds wrong. Escapism. That thing. I know it's not real. It's a fantasy. I know that. It just sometimes felt a bit weird, and also I felt like she was really shitting on the monarchy, which, I mean, I don't care. I don't care about monarchy. We don't have a monarchy where I live, so I don't care. But do you really need to shit on it that hard and center everything so much about the US? I mean, it's kind of typical for US American books, and I actually had a whole course on that in university, why that is like that, and I mean, it's fine. It's your culture or it's their culture. But it felt a bit over the top and a bit unnecessary, and it's not my style. I'm not living for the US centric views of the world. But that's fine. That's just my opinion, and maybe I'm getting already too political on this channel for the third or fourth video. Do with that whatever you want. Cancel me already, then at least I will be famous. Not that I really care about that. Don't make me famous. No. That could be just reverse psychology, and I actually want you to make me famous. You will never know. Oh yeah, and one thing I wanted also to mention is that there was a really nasty comment about non-dairy milk, and I don't know why it was there. Like, does she hate vegans, or was it just a stupid remark? I don't stand for it. Yeah, that's it with getting too political on this channel already. Anyways, don't shit on non-dairy milk. I love non-dairy milk. No, I don't have it with me. I had a coffee with soy milk this morning and it was delicious. Again, don't hate me. Don't cancel me. Thank you. It's okay. If you prefer oat milk, it's also okay. If you like almond milk, that's also alright. If you like dairy milk, we have different opinions. Like, no, I understand why you like it. Let's say that. Oh, I should stop talking about this. This wasn't the right topic to start on. Yeah, let's move on, shall we? Yes, I think that's better. The next book is less controversial, I guess. I don't know, I hope so. The Earthquake in Chile, which is a novella by Heinrich von Kleist, published in 1807, and it's basically about the Santiago earthquake in Chile in 1647. And we start off in a prison where a man wants to hang himself, so definitely be aware of suicide thoughts. Like, it's not super graphic and we don't dive too deep into that. It's, as I said, it's a novella, it's really short. Just know it's in there. Actually, that's all I want to tell you about it, because as it is really short, I think it's better to go into it not knowing what happens for me, it was the surprise that made me really enjoy it. I don't think it's a new favorite, but I think it was really interesting to read something that is older and a classic, I guess. And still there was a lot of violence in there. Also be aware of that, of the violence. In parts it got a bit graphic. But there were also really reasonable women in there, and the men were not as important as the women. They were important, but I think the women were more fleshed out and interesting and better written, as much as that is possible in such a short book. I really recommend it if you want to get more into, if you usually really like action and you also want to try classics or older books. The next book I want to talk about is The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher, which I listened to as an audiobook, and I can really recommend it, especially if you know English very well. For me it was in times a bit hard because there were words that I didn't know, and I think it's sometimes a bit easier reading made up names than just having them said to you. But I still enjoyed this a lot, and I will definitely reread it. If you don't know what it is about, it's a steampunk fantasy in a world where you can't walk on the earth because it's too dangerous, and so people have built really high spires in which they live now. There is mist in the air that can also be dangerous, but it's all very mystical. See what I did there? And I think I'm so funny. I know you hate it, but I'm sorry. Yeah, and the mist is really dangerous, and the only way to move between spires is by flying ships. And who doesn't like flying ships? Maybe you, and that's okay. I really like that idea. And since there are different spires, there has always been a bit of a tension between the spires, as they are like kingdoms. Every spire is kind of a kingdom, I think. And the spires we follow, that we care about, are Spire Albion, where our heroes live, and Spire Aurora, which one day takes it too far, and Spire Albion has to fight back. And that's the story we follow. And the whole story we follow 6 POVs, which sounds a lot. I know it can be a bit daunting. I understand that. I don't usually read a lot of adult fantasy, so I could do it. So I think you can do it as well, because the voices are all very, very distinctive, and you always know whose POV you're reading. The first one is Captain Grimm. He is the captain of the Predator, which is one of the flying ships. He's basically a pirate. I don't think they ever call it that, but if you like pirates, I guess you would enjoy that. And if you like to root for pirates. Like, not super dark and grim pirates and super bloodthirsty, but more like righteous pirates. And he has this wonderful crew of misfits. They are the side characters, but they are still very memorable, I think. At least a few of them. Like, you don't get to know all of them, but a few of them are very, very lovable characters, or interesting characters with character development. I enjoyed them really a lot as well. And Captain Grimm is that kind of character that I really enjoy following, because he makes you feel safe, even though he has a lot of weaknesses and a lot of flaws, but you feel constantly he will make things right. Then you also follow 2 girls that are heiresses to their respective families, which are both high families in Spire Albion, but they are from very different ends of the spectrum, and they both join the Royal Guard. I think it's the Royal Guard or the Spire's Guard. So basically the military. There is on one hand Gwendolyn, who is the heiress to the Lancaster family, which is one of the highest families, and they are well known and well respected, and she is really excited to join the military I think it starts with her actually deciding she wants to go. And I think it's a really funny scene. Yeah, anyways, Gwendolyn is... she acts the part. She definitely knows where she comes from, who her family is, and she is a bit snobbish and a bit rude and very oblivious and ignorant, but still was she the character I could connect to the most. Again, the same with Emma. Don't hate me for it. Maybe I'm a bad person, maybe I'm a stupid person, and that's why I love these kind of characters, but I just really liked Gwendolyn. I think that is a very unpopular opinion. And the second girl, I think she's the one who's a lot more well liked. Grammar. Her name is Bridget, and she is definitely the more humble one of them too, and she's more like us introverts. She's definitely an introvert. So I understand why readers would connect better to her. She also is friends with the cat, who she can speak to. I'll get into that later, in a second. But yeah, she is heiress to the Tegwin family, which is a little better than the common folk. They were degraded over the years of their family. They used to be well loved, but now they're just owning a meat vettery, and much rather than joining the guard, she would just work at the meat vettery. She's a really strong, physically strong, and I think tall character, which is great to see in a woman or in a girl in a book. She joins the guard because her father asks her to, and as I said, she has this cat friend whose name is Raoul, and he is actually a very, very cat, and he is one of the POVs we get. So yeah, there's one whole perspective from a cat. The cats have their own politics, their own worldviews, and they don't really like to mix with humans, but Raoul really respects Bridget, and that's why things happen. That's a really lame way to end that. Then another character, yes, we're still going. Another character is Folly, who is an etherealist apprentice. Etherealists are basically something like bit of seeming a bit religious, but they are mostly like magicians. They are, I think, respected, but also always looked upon a bit warily, because becoming an etherealist always means you become a bit insane, and those that don't seem insane are the most dangerous. Folly seems insane, and or not insane, but it's very obvious that she is different to most people, and I really also liked having her perspective, because she really is a depiction of social anxiety, basically, but how you can still be strong while having social anxiety. And the last character that we get the POV from is one from the enemy side, so that's also nice that you, from time to time, I don't think you see him as often as the other characters, but we also get to know where the enemy is at and where our hero's at, and then we can get anxious because we're rooting for the heroes, obviously. Generally, I would say the book has a well done depiction of mental health in it, without reveling in trauma and suffering, and just showing it in a very matter-of-fact way, while making you still be able to connect to the characters, if that makes sense. So, for all the fantasy lovers, what do we got besides mental health depiction? We've got flying ships, talking cats, so-called warrior bonds, which are actually cat-like super soldiers, I would say. Like, not super soldiers, but they are definitely stronger and different from humans, which also gets a bit into class thinking, which was also interesting. But I don't think any of these topics, like, they're very important topics in this, but none was overdone, and I also don't think he tried to get in too many things at the same time. Or at least I hope he didn't, because I'm hoping for a lot of answers and more deeper exploration of many topics in the second book, which we don't have yet, unfortunately. I think he's writing it at the moment as we're speaking. I really hope so. Then we've got crystal magic, which I didn't mention yet. It's a really important part of the whole thing. We've got scary monsters that live in the depth of the spires and on the earth, and we don't know anything about them really yet. Or some things we get to know, but as I said, it's all very mysterious. Yeah, and the mysterious outside world. As I said, we don't know what happened. As I said, I'm really excited for the second book. So those were the books that I finished that I wanted to talk about, and now I wanted to talk about 3 books that I'm currently reading. The first one is Charlotte Bronte's... Why do I say it in French? Brontes. But it sounds so French! Charlotte Bronte. I don't speak French. I'm reading Charlotte Bronte's, I'm gonna say it like that, Shirley. I got this last week for my birthday, and I'm only 1 chapter in, so I can't really say a lot about it yet. So the next one is an audiobook that I'm listening to, which again I want to say in French is Mirage. I want to say Mirage. By Soumaya Daoud. It's a Moroccan-inspired fantasy which follows 16-year-old Amani, so I guess it's YA. It feels very YA. And Amani lives on a secluded moon with the last of her people, which were occupied by the Vathek, I think, Vathek Empire, which are really cruel, and they occupied the whole star system and now oppressing everyone. And one day she gets snatched by them and taken back to the old planet, where the king of the empire lives now, and his daughter, because she looks exactly like the princess. She is supposed to become the stand-in for the princess, because that princess is a bee and nobody likes her. So she's the target of many people. At least that is what the synopsis said. At this point I haven't seen much of it, but I'm also only about 1/3 into the story, so I still have a lot of questions. And I also don't really see yet why the sci-fi aspect was necessary. In my opinion, this would have been perfectly fine, just as a fantasy in a fantasy world. But maybe we'll see that later, and it also isn't a problem, like it doesn't make it worse or anything. I just don't see why it is necessary. Generally, I really like the world she created, because it's really colorful and I can imagine it really well, even though I'm listening to the audiobook, and usually I'm not as good with audiobooks as I am with reading when it comes to imagining the world, especially because, again, there are a lot of made-up words and names that would probably be easier if I was to read them instead of just listen to them and try to figure out what they could mean, or if there actually is any meaning behind it. But I still really enjoy that part, the world building. I mean, it is very YA. I think there's a lot with which we could go more in depth with. But again, I'm only 1/3 in, so don't take this as my final review. Hello. Hello, neighbor. You're not even my neighbor. You're probably a teacher at school. What up? Please don't look at me. Another book I started is Equal Rites. Rites written Rites, as you can see on the picture, by Terry Pratchett, which is not obviously, but which is a Discworld novel, so you probably heard of the Discworld novels, I guess. Maybe. Are they still popular? Like, I know some people still really love them. Really love them. I actually have only read 2 Discworld books in my life, and can't say I enjoyed them too much. That one book I got from my library, and it didn't make any sense to me, which makes sense looking back at how the Discworld is built and that there are sub-series in it, and it's probably a wise decision to start with not a random book. So that was a stupid idea, and that other one was about cats and rats, and I didn't care about it. But now I'm reading Equal Rites, and it's the first book in the Witches series, I guess, sub-series. I was inspired reading this by Lien's Guide to the Discworld over at Literary Diversions. Against her advice, I did not start with the Guard series. I started with the Witches series, as I just said. At this point, I'm close to 50%, I think, and I really, really enjoy the humor and the fairy tale-esque kind of fantasy, which focuses more on the adventure and less on relationships, or there is this far no romantic relationship, and I don't think there's gonna be one, and that's the fantasy I really enjoy, like the adventure, mystery, bit of coming of age fantasy with a great humor. It doesn't need humor for me, but it definitely adds. In the book we follow an old, or seemingly old, witch. As we get told in the story, witches like to make themselves look older than they actually are. So we don't actually know her age, I think. Maybe I've overread it. But she seems old, and she's a witch, and her name is Granny Weatherwax, I think. I, stupidly enough, did not look that up again. And she's a witch living in the mountains near to the little village of Badass, where she takes on an apprentice. There's something special about this apprentice, because even though she is a girl, she's got the magic power of wizards, and those magic powers are reserved for men. And that is a problem, because who knows what's gonna happen? She can't teach her because she's a witch. She's got the witch's powers, the female powers. And this little girl, her name is Esk, by the way, and she suddenly has this male logical power and not the brain power. not brain, they call it headology, which is basically psychology, which is most of the witch's power. They also have like real magic, as Esk likes to call it. But because Granny can't teach her enough on her own, they go on an adventure to find the unseen university, and that's how far I've come this far at this point in time. Then there's also a DNF I want to talk about. That's the last thing. Then we're finally done. And that book is Not Forgetting the Whale by John Ironmonger, which is a speculative fiction that explores the idea what would happen if, there was a kind of deadly virus that would come from Asia and become a global pandemic. I know it's really out there. And he explores that in a really philosophical way, and it's sorry, I can't keep this up anymore. No, he did not write that in 2020. He wrote that actually, or it was published in 2015. So, a bit scary, but okay. And you can probably see why I don't like to read it that much at the moment. I mean, it. I heard it's a hopeful story, so it probably would be nice to finish it. But I'm so annoyed. I would rather have had all the philosophical and sociological explorations that Ironmonger does in this book just put together in a nice non-fiction. Because he can't write characters for shit, I think, personally. If you are not a character-driven reader, then you might like this book, really enjoy this book. But to me, the story is super slow, so that's not the driving force, and I think it should be a more character-driven book. But the characters are all so one-dimensional, and they all seem to just exist for the main character, who is incredibly perfect to everyone, and at the same time so incredibly bland. Like, we get to know a lot about him, but it doesn't add any personality to him for some reason. And then, how is there supposed to be a character development if there even isn't even a character to begin with? And especially the women. Don't, no, we don't need more one-dimensional women in literary. Really, we've had enough of that. Stop it. Yeah, so maybe I'm gonna pick up this book at one point in my life, because I have the audiobook, it is on my phone, but not at this point in my life. Maybe if everything's over. That's it. That was the whole video. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end. If you have, thank you so much. I applaud you. You went through this with me. You were bearing with me, and I'm so proud of you. I hope you will come back. Please don't go. I'm sorry. Next time will be better. Maybe not. I don't make promises. Don't make promises you can't keep, but those are the best promises. Name that reference. I know you all can. Anyways, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.